Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the Next Move podcast. This is a podcast where we're essentially going to interview people who are making a change in India, whether it be through starting businesses or whether it be through creating organizations that work toward a more equitable society in India. We are getting into the minds of them in this podcast. So, if you're looking for a podcast that takes you into the minds of some of the movers and shakers in India, then look no further because this podcast will definitely do that. So, this is the first podcast in hopefully a long series of podcasts where I had the great pleasure of interviewing Smita Singhal. And Smita Singhal is the director and co founder of Absolute Water. And Absolute Water is a wastewater management business. And they're able to convert sewage into drinking water, if you can believe that, through a 100% green process. And Smitha will go into this process later in the podcast, but they were actually the first company to be able to do this in a 100% green way. That means no chemicals. So some of the key takeaways that I took from this discussion with Smitha were that if you're looking to make an impact in India, especially through something that's new and sustainable, and in some sort of project like this, she takes you through the exact real world challenges that you're going to face, whether that be with the government and whether that be through educating customers. I really appreciated how Smitha was extremely honest and shared real life examples of how she faced them and how she got over these challenges. Most people, won't talk about their interactions with the government, but Smitha was really open and honest, and it's a must listen if you're looking to make a change. And the other really key takeaway that I took from Smitha was that if you're going to do something so big, you need to have a huge motivation behind it to keep going every single day in the face of rejection. And Smitha's motivation behind this project come from her kids, and it's a very cool story, so you should definitely tune in. And I think you're going to love this podcast because Smitha is an extremely energetic and passionate person, and you can hear it in her voice throughout this discussion. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. I'm your host Arman Kendri, and today we have Smita Singhal with us. She's one of the founders of Absolute Water. And, as the name tells you, Absolute Water is a company that provides wastewater management. And they're actually the first company to provide 100% green filtering process. And this process is what converts sewage into drinking water. So I'm incredibly excited to have Smita on the podcast. Hey, Smita, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you today?
Doing good. So, if you could just expand on this introduction, what do you do? Who are you? What's your background? That would be awesome.
Sure. So I'm Smita. I'm the director of Absolute Water Private Limited. We're based in Delhi, and we basically have installed the country's first 100% green wastewater recovery plant from sewage that can convert sewage into drinking water quality. And this is actually green in all processes because it is the one that is done without any chemicals whatsoever. There is no chemical dosing or any such thing which other conventional systems do. And more importantly, it is a non-RO system. Only because we wanted to kind of retain the minerals and vitamins of water as it's naturally formed, which a lot of ROs, when you look around, most of them strip it away. So there's really nothing left other than chemicalized water or chlorine dosed water which goes inside your body, and at some point it's going to kill you because it's a chemical at the end of the day.
Right.
So we've installed about 14 such plants all over the country. We're a 3.5-year-old young company. But we have one of the best teams because everybody on board, on an average, has a very common passion and goal to do something for the environment, more importantly for water pollution. So that way, I think we're pretty cool as a company. My own background, Well, I have actually no technical background, to be honest, but I am a
Hmm.
BCom graduate as well as a double graduate in advertising and marketing. So I think that's
Okay.
where that kind of contributed to starting the business. And I have a very strong technical team on board. And of course, learned myself the technical valuations and descriptions and terms as I went along. So
Yeah.
yeah, but the entire technology is we did it ourselves. We designed it ourselves. It took about a year and a half of research,
Okay.
and we installed our first plant in 2015
Hmm.
for the Delhi Jal Board. They are basically the municipal supply drinking water for all of Delhi NCR.
Okay.
And yeah, so that was our first drinking plant, and it was thankfully inaugurated by our CM, Mr. Arvind Kejriwal. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so yeah, we got a bit of press on that one. But yeah, so basically that's what it is, and we keep researching. We're trying to, we have 14 plants down and many others to go, but we're also kind of engaging a lot of government departments where tenders come out and everything. And because of the current water crisis that we're all facing,
Hmm.
everybody has suddenly woken up. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so suddenly now we're getting a lot of calls and stuff like that to set up green plants rather than setting up conventional systems, uh,
Okay.
which kind of encouraged a lot of what do you call it, electricity consumption, which ours doesn't. And they want something green, completely green. So we kind of fit
Hmm.
the bill
Hmm.
on all of that, as well as the treated water that comes out kind of it matches the parameters of what the Central Pollution Control Board asks for.
Okay.
Rather, I think we're 20% better than that.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's basically the whole gamut of things and where we come from, and more importantly, I think why I got into this was more because where I live, especially in the rain season, in the monsoon season, we used to get a lot of crap water coming through our showers and through our sinks, and tap water basically, because the sewage line and
Hmm.
the municipal water line used to get mixed up.
Okay.
So, and I couldn't understand why my children or why we were getting sick, and having a lot of tummy issues. And till we kind of really tested the water, even though we had, your so-called, I mean, in my house, I have a non-RO plant for drinking water. But
Yeah.
predominantly, it was like every time you shower, you had to wait a good 5, 6 minutes for all that rubbish water to flow off. And still there would be like a, smell in the water.
Wow. This is
Yeah.
in Delhi,
This
Smita?
is in Delhi. This is in Delhi, and I live in a pretty decent part of Delhi, so it's
Yeah.
shocking, even more so. So I couldn't even imagine what people in lower strata society, or where you have these cluster homes, which are called the whatever the deregulized colonies, or wherever water is available, would be
Yeah.
far worse.
No, and
Um,
I think, just right there, I want to touch on 2 points
so
because this is huge, and as a lot of people will know, there's a huge water crisis in India. All of
yeah,
our natural water resources are getting depleted by
yeah.
the minute. You see it in Chennai, you see it in Delhi, you see it in now even Bangalore. We're getting,
Bangalore, Hyderabad,
we're
a lot
Hyderabad.
of Northeast as well. Even though you get such fresh water there, so called, but they
Exactly.
had no sewage system. So that's the complete opposite stuff happening over there. So it's crazy,
Yeah,
man. It's crazy.
I was really surprised to see some of the stats. We're ranked 120 out of 122 countries in the
Simple.
Clean Water Index,
Simple.
and 200,000 people die every year due
Yeah,
to our water crisis in some form or the other, whether it be through health, whether it be lack of accessibility
yeah,
to clean water. But now it's kind of a scary trend that we see in India, is that people only wake up to these sort of issues, first of all, when we hit a peak, and
mm,
second of all, when we hit the affluent,
yes,
of the road. As you
yes,
said, we're lucky enough to, on a daily basis, we can go to our kitchens and we can, get water from whatever filtering system
yeah,
that we have.
absolutely, absolutely.
So, but now, now, like you're saying, the showers, it's affecting the affluent. So they're now coming out and saying, look, this is unacceptable. But
Yeah,
this kind of issue has been potentially and definitely affecting the poorer, sectors of our society for a while.
Absolutely, absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
like I want to touch on here. What is your major motivation that you saw? I know you said it's because your kids, you definitely didn't want to expose them to, some dirty water, but like this can lead, a health crisis leads to an economic crisis, very, very easily. So, what is that really what kicked you to get started, and how not knowing and not having a technical background did you just dive completely into this
Yeah.
huge project?
No, so I had a little bit of help, to be honest, because
Okay.
my father is an IIT Kanpur chemical engineer,
Okay.
and his own business has to do with sugar technology and sugar clarification as well.
Okay.
So yeah, he kind of had this idea in his head about what if we were to treat, water. I mean, how do we treat water in an organic manner rather than, everything else that is available there? More importantly, how do we find a source that is readily available any given point of time?
Right.
Right? And more importantly, make it affordable, so that it's access to safe drinking water and everybody can get that rather than paying for it most of the time, or getting into this whole water mafia that we have in Delhi as well, which are the
Yeah.
water tankers and stuff like that. And so that's when we kind of put our heads together, and he came up with the idea technically, about how to do this. We went under research for about a year, and then we kind of figured out another 6 months it took to how do we kind of take this up commercially, because
Okay.
we're not doing this, let's be honest, we're not doing it for non-profit.
Right.
It is an invention, it is an innovation, and we kind
Hmm.
of took 4 or 5 different aspects of the entire technical system, like vermiculture. We engage vermiculture. Vermiculture is basically nothing but these earthworms that basically, these are specially bred earthworms that were done by a study by a professor in Chile, and
Okay.
he basically came up with this whole idea of how earthworms can eat up micropollutants. That's their sustenance, that's their feed. So we kind of got a bunch of them from there. We imported it here, and then we bred them here,
Okay.
and that's how we kind of started our research. And then again, to do it organically. So what are the various porous materials, non-porous materials? How does gravel, how does sand? We all know sand is a great filter. That was already established many centuries ago. So kind of just kind of marrying different aspects of various kind of understanding and research and stuff like that is how we came up with something what we call our biofilter bed. Our
Okay.
biofilter bed is basically we have like 5 layers of filtration process, which is the natural filtration process. So now we, after that 1.5 years of research, we basically use wood chips, we use different size of gravel stones, we use sand, and we use the worms. Worms are
Okay.
basically my biggest, if I have to say, my biggest heroes in this whole thing. They kind of carry a lot of the work on their shoulders. Um,
Really?
yeah, they are the guys who pretty much eat up all the micropollutants. So where the sewage line comes in from, we have a sort of what we call a bar screen, right? It's like, consider it to be like when you're making tea, like the tea strainer. So a
Okay.
huge version of that. So that takes away all the bigger forms of garbage, which is like your plastic packets, your sanitary pads, your
Mm.
whatever else that cannot be digested. The micropollutants, which actually carry the bacteria, which carry the pathogens, is what gets filtered through, and that gets showered upon. Like we have a sort of a sprinkler system through which this entire thing can be evenly distributed.
Okay.
And the micropollutants, when they touch the water, the first layer where the worms are, they eat it all up. They kind of, degenerate it. And then, as and when the clearer water keeps filtering through all these different layers of media, that's the first level of filtration, basically. And that
Hmm.
water is the quality of water that is amazing for agriculture, for horticulture, and as well as for groundwater rejuvenation and for any water body replenishment, basically.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's
So
the level of water. Yeah.
this is not for drinking water. You
No, so
can't.
because we had three
Okay.
steps of filtration. This is the first step.
Okay.
So it all
Okay.
actually truly depends, because when we're pitching to a client or when we're talking to a client, if they need it, it's predominantly the first question we ask is, what do you want to do with the treated water, right?
Okay.
There are a lot of people who want to just say, oh, we want to, we have one client who has 220 acres. It's a engineering college. They're like,
Okay.
okay, we want to just use it for horticulture because, we have large spaces of green, but they're not getting green. We want to kind of use it there rather than buying water or, kind of digging a bore well.
Mm-hmm.
Basically.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one level of it. The other level of it, the second level of treatment is what we call advanced treatment, for which we kind of bung in oxygen of sorts, called ozonation.
Okay.
Now that again is naturally done. And that water, the treated level is good enough for, say, toilet flushing, for AC cooling systems, for washing your cars, for washing your garden, for maintenance, like, when you do various cleaning jobs in your homes, so it's
Mm-hmm.
almost 70% of the water that you would use other than drinking gets
Okay.
substituted by this water.
Okay.
And the third level is where we have a specialized membrane, which is not chemically dosed for drinking water,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is
Okay.
potable
Okay.
water, which can be used for bathing, it can be drinking, it can be cooking, wherever you need water for human consumption.
Got it. Got
Yeah,
it. Now, I
yeah,
have two, follow-up questions there.
sure.
First of all, who exactly are your clients? You mentioned colleges, but are you going after buildings? Are you going after
Yes, yes,
campuses of,
yes.
companies? Could you expand on that?
Sure. So our clients range everywhere from institutions to boutique hotels to food processing
Okay.
industry, and schools and residential apartments, basically.
So why would a hotel choose your system as opposed to a chemical system? What are the definitely the chemical-free nature of your business and system is much more effective and much better in the long term. But
Mhm.
are there cost benefits and other long-term benefits that you say in your proposal? Look, we're doing this, and the other guys they can't even come close to this. Is
Yeah, exactly.
what are the differentiators?
So, being in India, the first thing that
Yeah,
they ask is everything is about, it's all money related. Let's be honest about
exactly.
it. They don't really care about the process till they say, oh, okay, we're going to save this much money. That's amazing. Now tell me about the process, right? So it's
Correct.
always, it's like how we say in India, it's ulta, or it's like, it's, you kind of pick your nose from the other side. So, in this case, what we pitch is the ROI. That's the first thing we pitch. So what we say is that the installation cost might be 10 or 15% a little more expensive than the conventional system, but where you make up your money is in the operational costs, because that is where we are currently the cheapest in the country. Because for two simple reasons, is that our entire system is designed on gravity. So there is no electricity usage other than a pump that is used to, and these are like small 1 HP pumps, kind of thing, which kind of just uses to suck up the sewage from the pipes and everything and put them in a collection tank, and then it just via gravity goes into the sprinkler system and all of that. And the other pump
Wow.
that is used to just collect the treated water and take it to wherever it needs to be taken. So that's the only electricity usage. That's number one. Number
Hmm.
two is because there is no chemical treatment, so there are not very many, kind of different pre-treatment. We don't need pre-treatment either. Again, compared to other conventional systems, you need pre-treatment, you need chemical dosing. There are like a million motors attached to it. So on all those fronts, you're getting a complete zero from me, right?
Okay.
So there is no cost on that bit. And the other thing is when the maintenance cost of, say, a conventional system, for example, would be, say, 2 rupees, for example, mine would be 8 paisa.
Now, why is that? Is it
That is
because of
because,
the?
for one simple reason, it's just the use of we're using natural products. We're using natural, which is not very expensive to use
Hmm.
or to acquire
Okay.
for that matter. And we are not using chemically dosed systems, which do require a lot of electricity for it to run. And plus, our entire system can work on solar.
Wow. So, why are other companies, in your space who you see as competitors not doing the same thing? Because clearly it seems like you're able to get the cost lower, you have
Yes,
long-term health benefits.
yeah.
Why, why wouldn't everybody go with you, and why aren't others doing this?
I ask that question to myself every day. But the thing is that because it's I actually really don't know how to answer that. A lot of people have come and asked me this, like, why are people not like lining up outside your door? You've got such an amazing system. We get a pat on the back on every forum we go to, but it's just that the problem is it is the mindset, right? It is about the
Correct.
mindset of people saying, oh, are we gonna get shit? I've literally been told this on my face, like, are we gonna be drinking shit water? So I'm like, you know what? You have zero water coming anyway. This is predominantly the place which is the only thing that is fluid, which is available and 24/7. This is the only place you can get that water from, and you're getting far better water than what you are actually already drinking shit water. Let's be honest about it. So it can only get better from there.
But can I
Um,
stop you there? Are we like, see, the water that I'm drinking in my house, I know you say you have a non-RO process, but I'm drinking RO water. I would assume a lot of India is as well. Is that shit water? Are we drinking clean water?
No, from the RO, yes, you're drinking clean water because it's stripped of everything. But the thing
Okay.
is, very few people know this actually. The water that comes from your tap, right? The
Yeah.
way to understand whether you really need an RO or you don't need an RO are two things. Is that if any which way, if you have these water test kits that are available very cheap, they basically just kind of check the parameters of the water that you have. And if there's anything which is the TDS, what we call the total dissolved solids, if it is
Uh-huh.
less than 200, if the reading comes less than 200, you actually don't need to put an RO because your water is not too bad. You can just put a UV, what we call the UV or the UF membrane, which is
Okay.
available. There are UV filters as well that you can use, and you don't need to use the RO. So that way, you still are drinking pure water in its actual normal, natural state. That is what a lot of people don't know and don't have the knowledge. For them, it's just a blanket decision or understanding, oh, RO is the best, and that's the only thing that, kind of strips all the bacteria away. So, therefore, we're kind of drinking clean water. It's not
No,
necessarily that way.
definitely. I would assume that's, RO is pretty expensive. I would assume that's a
Exactly.
cheap
That's the
system.
other thing. That's the other thing. It's not available to everybody. An RO
Right.
system the average cost is about 11 grand, 12,000 rupees. Everybody can't afford that.
For
You're
the
either,
basic systems, I just bought one, for the real big, I was surprised at that. The
yeah,
basic ones are 11 grand, but the higher end, nicer ones, which
yeah.
when it comes to your water, they can price whatever they want because they know, there's flexibility here. I
Yeah,
will pay more for, a surety that I'm drinking good water.
yeah, they have something called there's some new copper thing that started about, like, companies
Correct.
copper thing, and then so I'm like, but copper is again a natural a natural product. Why don't you just put that into your actual system and not, what are you trying to show by showing something that's shiny out on the outside?
So
Um,
Smitha, like, I'm sure you guys are certified, in terms of, and you could show that to hotels and stuff.
of
And
course,
there's
of course.
still trepidation after that, saying like, look,
Well,
we're
it's a
100%
matter of
guaranteed.
conviction, Arman, to be honest. It's truly a matter of conviction. It is just to let them know, like I said, like we start off with the money bit. We talk about the finances and we're like, okay, how much do you spend on your current STP? Or how much
Hmm.
are you spending on drinking water? Or how much water are you spending on maintaining your hotel or your staff quarters, whatever. And so when that figure comes to us, then we kind of do this whole ROI for them and say, okay, so if you're spending this much on that, this is the amount you'll be spending on the treated water that we give you out of our system. You can very clearly see the math in this whole thing. So when that
Right.
conversation goes on, then we kind of then go on the whole green factor about obviously being green and what is being done, and more importantly, they're like, oh, so if we set it up, will there be a smell because a lot of sewage treatment plants? I'm like, there's no smell, there is no noise, there is no nothing. It is
Hmm.
just one small, nice little cool system sitting there in the back of your garage or sitting in the space above in the roof. Or because again, we came up. That was another challenge that we kind of also that hurdle that we crossed was making two kinds of systems. One being a modular system, which is like a
Hmm.
package fabricated system, and one which is a civil based system, which is all dependent on the area available. So
Okay.
because we understood that everybody cannot have a civil system. If I'm say going into a hotel, or I'm going into an institute or a home for that matter, it has to be something that is modular and can be kept anywhere, you know. So the modular
Correct.
systems we can treat from from about 1,000 liters going all the way up to 50,000 liters, and it's a small little, between 2 by 2 to about 5 by 5. That's it. That's all the space I need. And for a civil system, starts from about say 100,000 liters going all the way up to 2 million liters a day, which is where we set up the entire civil. It's all basically all out there. So because we wanted to kind of get into the space of the medium segment, which is not there. We have smaller systems, which are the RO systems, which are in everybody's homes, or you have the big guys who are like the Wabags and the Ion Exchange and all those big companies who are already doing, doing sewage treatment plants in far, far bigger capacity. But again, they are doing it through this whole chemicalized system or whatever.
Correct.
I don't think we can reach that point, because being organic, there is only a certain limitation that we have, and in that limitation itself, it's a huge market. It's a huge market. There are many people out there who
Definitely.
could benefit from this, right? So that's what we're heading for, and that's why we're currently working. We feel that the government way would be the best way, even though I hate it because of the way they are, and corruption and the whole thing, and take forever on this whole tender basis. But we're trying to kind of cut through that whole red tape kind of thing through networking and through understanding what they want and kind of stuff. Like, I'm like, I'll do whatever, just get me in there, because I know once I get in there, I'll prove it to you immediately anyway. So, it's just a matter of getting my foot into the door. And of course, CSR. CSR is a big one, because through companies, because now it's become mandatory in India. I'm sure you know of it. Like,
Yes.
if you have a certain profit level, then you have
2%, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're kind of hitting those spaces as well, which is how we actually got into something called Guru Jal. Guru Jal is basically it's an agency that was developed by the Haryana government for kind of bringing up the groundwater levels of Gurgaon and the surrounding areas, because that area, the groundwater level is below zero now.
Wow.
So they want to rejuvenate 290 ponds and lakes in and around to bring up the water level. So there was this whole pitch that happened, and there were several rounds, and we finally got selected. And they've started off with one pond for us, because, being a new technology, so that we can prove it. So work has already started. We should finish, say, in another month and a half. And that treated water, will be used for a biodiversity park, like a 30,000 biodiversity. Plus, also, they're going to sell a lot of the excess water for construction in and around the area, rather than them, buying water or, digging into a bore well. And some bit of that water is going to be used for reviving that pond for tourism.
Okay.
So things are happening, but I would say it's emerging. I would not say it is there, or I will not say it's gained too much of traction yet. But yes, I mean, I have to say that people are beginning to really get the idea of what the hell's going on, what they need to do, and they need to do it now, basically.
I think, with this kind of stuff, we're unfortunately years behind too, in terms of a country, because we've already done so much damage to our natural resources. And, I thank you for bringing up this point of the government, because, I know a lot of people, when they're trying to do impactful projects in India, whether it be through pollution, whether it be through water, whether it be through, anything they're trying to do, they're going to have to interact with the government. Yeah. Now, could you expand upon a little bit, some of the challenges you face, some of the ways that you found, like, this is the way to deal with it best, this is the way how you can create a win-win scenario for both sides, and, what are some of the key points that you've seen working with the government so far?
The key points with the government is really, I would say, one is kind of, we can all be sitting here and being idealistic citizens and say that, I mean, there was a time when I was like, dude, I have a technology, it works, I've proved it. Why the hell do I need to really justify it to such an extent, even monetarily, if I have to, let's be honest about it, with the government? I mean, like, why can't they just see it for what it is and just say, okay, fine, you have it, do it. But in the case of the government, we still have very conventional systems of how the government works. People, till the time I think we get a really young government, or, our generation of government, only then
Uh-huh.
can anything work to the extent of how it doesn't work right now. So best is to, like, like they say, if you can't win him, join him, kind of a thing. So I
Okay.
just, I mean, I'm gonna be super honest here. It's basically we just ask them,
Please.
what do you want? What do you want for this? Like, how do I get
Mhm.
it? And
Yeah.
there's a number. If we can meet it, well and good. And truly, I have to say this. I mean, I really don't care where this goes, but that's exactly how this is how it works. You have to
No.
find the right guy who is sitting, or the guy or woman for that matter, actually, nowadays.
Yeah.
And you just have to basically talk to them and tell them about it. On an average, we have always had 100% approval on technology. They like
Okay.
what we're doing. So at least a little bit of that battle is won. I would say 25% of that battle is won. But then it comes down to brass tacks. It's like, okay, we have these jobs available. How do you want to go about it? And so we're like, okay, we pick so and so, so and so, so and so. And they're like, okay, so then they have a number in their head of how, once that number is achieved and given, then everything moves forward very smoothly.
Well,
And that's
thank
really
you
the only
for.
way. There is probably the only place I can say, which I did not have too much trouble and we didn't have to hit a number, was probably the Punjab government. Very honestly,
Okay.
they are one of the they're one of the fewer people I've come across who are very open to new technologies and want to adopt it and want to do something about it. The other be the Karnataka government or the Delhi government, anything where we've been dealing with people, I've never seen this kind of acceptance and openness and being honest about the fact that they want something like that in its true form, basically.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for the honesty there, because, that's a really, everybody knows it, but that's a true challenge that everybody is
it
going
is.
to have to face,
It is. It is.
while trying to make an impact in India. It's
Yeah.
just the unfortunate state of, current events. And I completely agree with you. Hopefully, as we continue to progress and,
Yeah.
our generation, gets to a point where it's like, look, everybody, this has to be done.
Yeah.
And we
Exactly.
need companies like Absolute Water to be profitable in order to sustain this country moving forward. So I
Yeah.
think that's a huge point, and you know and what just in respect to your time, I wanted to move a little bit away from that back to the personal with Smitha, and I wanted to
Sure.
ask you, what does the next 10 years look like? Is it, in both in terms of personal and in terms of Absolute Water, what's your ambition and what's your mission?
So personally, in 10 years, am hoping to see myself, you know, hoping that there's a policy that has come out in the government for treating sewage at the home level. I mean, truly,
Okay.
that's where I really want to see this go, and because that's what I'm heading for, and we have already done a lot of research on it in the last 2 years. To basically, like, we have RO systems in every home for drinking water, right?
Uh-huh.
I
Mm-hmm.
want to be setting up little small fabricated units in every home to treat sewage at source.
Okay.
So the whole reason being is that a lot of the sewage is currently coming from there. A lot of the domestic sewage, raw sewage is coming from institutes, from homes and wherever, predominantly homes. And kind of just if you treat it at source, a lot of that chunk of that sewage does not need to go into pipelines and then get dumped into a water body, right?
Correct.
So if I'm going to treat it at source, that's where it all ends. That starts and ends right there. So that is, from 10 years from now, I am hoping that I would have achieved a pretty decent percentage of that by just, if there is if basically remove these bloody RO drinking water supply systems from the homes and try to give you water naturally. And I'm hoping, more importantly, to kill that mindset, and tell them that, dude, it doesn't matter. It all depends on the end result of what you're putting into your body. Let's be honest about it. And
Definitely.
that itself will bring up, like you correctly said, if the health crisis is equal to an economic crisis, if I can partake and kind of do anything for that and contribute my point to that, then why the hell not, right? So
Yeah.
So that's pretty much, that's really where I see myself and my company 10 years from now, that I've been able to contribute to that. And of course, you have your number goals and your financial goals and all of that. That
Correct.
comes, but for me, that's secondary, very honestly. It is just about getting into that space where I can do something at source and kind of take it from there. And the rest, I think, pretty much will fall into place. That's what I feel. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's an awesome mission, and I can really feel the energy and passion, and I'm sure the audience can too. So Absolute Water, I'm sure is going to make a huge impact for India, and we're thankful for companies like Absolute Water because we definitely need this moving forward.
Yeah,
And I just wanted to, sort of go into the conclusion of this interview. And I
sure.
wanted to say, is there any call to action or, a specific point that you want to address the audience to do, to look further up into Absolute Water or to, any key things that they could be doing in their homes to, prevent, water wastage or,
Sure.
any call to action that you have?
Um, I think more importantly is about like home use is where I feel the maximum amount of water gets you know wasted, including in my own area where I live. There are a lot of like people who just overflowing of tanks, overhead tanks for water, for the supply for the home. It's just like there is no limit to how much flow. They don't know how to control it, or they don't know when to switch the motor off. That is something that it really, it's my pet peeve. I hate it.
Okay.
I'm like, yeah, like, and there are so many things that are available now that you can just use. They have these little sensors which are inexpensive that can automatically switch it off, switch off the water supply as soon as your tank gets filled up, right?
Right,
You
right.
save shitloads of water on that. Then, of
Wow.
course, and encouraging, and I think in schools and stuff, and I see my children doing that now, which I'm super proud of, and I'm very happy with the school who does that, and a lot of other things where they teach really about water conservation at the school level. Like there are many times, my daughter would go to the kitchen and be telling my cook, like, dude, why are you wasting water? Like, switch it off if you're not using it. So,
Yeah.
things like that, that's amazing. So I think that should be also implied at home with your staff. Very importantly, I mean, we are in a country that everybody has somebody or the other working for them. So just to
Correct.
teach them that just because the water flow is coming at a decent level does not mean there's more water. You're finishing off that much as well,
Yeah.
and just getting like little small little things like in our home as well. We have these little what do you call them, little spray systems which you can just attach to your tap, and it kind of controls the flow of water. Just small things like that. Yeah, I mean that itself can really help, and the inexpensive methods of doing that. And of course, like when you're watering your garden, just make sure that it's hydrated, or use some sort of a system which again is inexpensive, where you don't have to you put in like what do you call them, foam reeds, which are natural foam, which kind of retain water but can still hydrate your plants. Yeah,
Yeah.
be green, sure, be green, but don't waste the biggest resource that can make it green. You know what I mean? So
Correct.
that
And I think these little things, they definitely make an impact, especially if at scale everybody's doing it. We can save, at a personal level, we can help save a lot of water that way.
exactly. I mean, we can have all the technology in the world, but if
Correct.
so it's funny, but my entire thing was that, okay, fine, if we cannot have a personal discipline on this, so why don't I also come up with a technology that will give you water 24 hours a day? And you don't have to really think about the control of water because it's coming to you from a source that is not being used for anything, but
Yeah.
to give you water, and you don't have to worry about it for the next whatever number of years of your life. That's the other way
Yeah.
of looking at it. Yeah.
That's an awesome way to look at it, and I definitely hope that more people can adopt this.
Yes.
And so thank you so much, Smitha, for your time.
Thank
Just
you very much.
one last closing question. I'm
Sure.
going to ask this to everybody who comes on the podcast.
Hmm.
Is that at the end of your career, you've done everything you've wanted to do, you've seen everything, you've achieved all your ambitions, and you're sitting down reflecting and you're writing your autobiography.
Yeah.
What do you want the title for that autobiography to read?
Wow.
A tough one.
That's a tough one. But yeah, I mean, if I really don't know, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, if I used to think about my personal biography, if I ever had to write about the various things of my life that I've had from the time I was a kid to now and the experiences I've had, I think that kind of reflects in the business as well. It's like twice bitten but not shy. So
Wow, I love that name.
so yeah, that was something I used to always think about. If I ever write a book of my own, that's pretty much what I would call my entire life, was like twice bitten but not shy.
Wow. Well, that's an awesome book. As soon as you eventually publish that, please let me know because I'll be the first
For
reader.
sure. For sure. Done.
Again, thank you so much for your time, Smita. I really appreciate
Thanks,
this. I
Arman.
learned
Thank
a
you for
lot
having
from this.
me. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a brilliant platform, and I congratulate you on this. And I hope it becomes really something big.
I hope so too. So good luck for you with everything moving forward, and thanks again.
Thank you, Arman. Thank you so much.